So naturally, the next step in the rigging process is skinning. Well, I suppose rigging and skinning are kind of separate processes, but the rigging is pretty much done. Now we just need to attach the character itself to the joints. Okay, so we have to do this through the process called skinning. Now, usually with your models is you might find that you have to skin one object to multiple joints, and that's generally how we do it. In the case of these robots, it's very easy because a lot of these are going to be skinned to a single joint. Where we're going to have multiple joints on one piece of geometry is the spine and the neck. Everything else, now on the trash can robot, the feet are going to be on multiple joints, but that's about it. So everything else is going to be on a single joint. Okay, so that's going to make this process really easy and really quick. Okay, so making sure that we are in the rigging menu set here so that we have our skin menu. This is where we're going to do all our skinning. Okay, so let us go ahead and start by going into skin, bind skin, and going the option box. Okay, so we're going to hit here, go edit, reset settings. So I want to leave this at default. Okay, we're just going to use the default skinning settings. We're not going to do anything fancy because we honestly don't need to do anything fancy given that we're skinning a robot. Okay, make sure that before you go to skin any of the geometry, make sure that all the history is deleted. So you could just select that whole robot group and delete your history. Nothing should have history on it. Anytime that there's history on something, when you go to skin it, you've just made your rig a little bit heavier, a little bit more computationally expensive. So we want to eliminate that and just delete all the history. And then also, you can freeze transformations if you want, but that one's not quite as important as deleting the history. Okay, so let's go ahead and start right here at the leg. Okay, again, with this TV robot, this stuff is really easy. The way you skin is you select a joint and you select a piece of geometry. Now, the order doesn't matter. You can start by selecting the joint or you can start by selecting the geometry. It doesn't matter. So the hip joint here, I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to select the geometry. And here are my bind skin options. I'm just going to hit the bind skin button. Okay, easy enough. So if I now move my leg, you can see that that piece there is moving with it. Now, one thing that I actually forgotten to do here, I'm going to undo back. There is one setting that I need to set. So under skin, bind skin, instead of binding to joint hierarchy, we're going to bind to selected joints. Okay, that's important because if we do to joint hierarchy, it's going to automatically use as many joints as it needs to bind to this thing, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to use bind to selected joints. That way, any joint that I've selected is the only joint that's going to be used in the binding. And since this section of geometry here basically is just for the hip, then we might as well just bind it to that joint alone. So this time again, if we hit bind skin, and let me see if we rotate it, it moves as expected. The knee. So this piece of geometry here plus the lower leg are going to be bound to the knee joint here. So I'm going to select those there. And again, skin, bind skin. And because I've just done a command, if I hit G, it's going to repeat that command. So I'm going to select my ankle joint, just the ankle joint, okay, and shift select this foot and hit G to repeat that operation, which is the bind skin operation. Then select the ball joint, select this section of the foot, hit G to repeat that. If you're doing the trash can robot, you're going to hold off a little on doing the feet, sorry, and we'll do those a little bit later. Okay, so this and the ankle, hit G. This and the ball joint, hit G. These two pieces of geometry and the knee joint, hit G. This piece of geometry and the hip joint, hit G. Okay, so let's go ahead and test all of this to make sure that we did in fact, oh, let's see, I missed one. Okay, so I need to make sure that I get it, so I'm going to hit this and this, and hit G. And I think I got it that time. Yep, there we go. So if I move this, my whole leg should now move as expected. Let's test the other side. Move this as expected, and it does. And you can see if we move our pole vector, we get our knee going the way that we need it to go. Okay, so that's pretty much your legs. Okay, you see how easy that was? We just select parts and skin them. So let's keep going. We're going to select this shoulder geometry and this shoulder joint and hit G. Now, if G doesn't work, it means you probably did some other command that has now become the last command. So if hitting G does something you don't want it to do, just undo that part, then go back up there. Select the part of geometry, so these two pieces and the elbow joint, and go to skin, bind skin. And then this part goes to the wrist joint. And again, make sure you have select wrist, and shift select that, hit G. And then the claws, this side is connected to claw 1, hit G. This side is connected to left claw 2, and hit G. So again, make sure you test everything, make sure it works. See, if I do this, it moves. If I do this side, it moves. If I rotate the wrist control, that rotates. If I rotate this, that works. If I rotate my shoulder, that works. Okay, we're in business. So this side and this joint, hit G. This piece of geometry, and the elbow joint, hit G. And you'll notice that even though my elbow joint is here, I can select it anywhere along the bone. Okay, so that just makes it easy for you to be able to select things. We did this one, yep. And then this one, and I want this on the right wrist there. So hit G. And then claw 1. Right claw 1 is this geometry, and where's right claw 1? Hit G. This geometry, and right claw 2, hit G. Okay, so test it out. Get the wrist rotated, everything rotates. Get the claw 1 control and rotate it. That opens the claw. Rotate that side. That opens the claw that way. Elbow works. Shoulder, that works. Okay, so we have the limbs done, and everything is following along as it should. Okay, now let's do the TV. So with the TV, because the TV is multiple things, I did group the TV, but it doesn't matter if you did or not. Okay, you can just find all the parts of the TV, select them all, and then select your spine 4 joint. Make sure you get the joint, not the geometry. There it is. Okay, and then do a skin and bind skin there. Okay, the eyeballs. And again, the reason that I can see my joints through my geometry is because I have shading, X-ray joints on, makes life a lot easier. Okay, so this eyeball on this side, I'm going to select my right eye center, shift select my right eyeball. Oh, and my auto save is going. Let me just save my file here. There we go. And then skin, bind skin. Okay, do the same on this side. This geometry, this eye center joint, hit G to bind that to it. And just to make sure that it works, if I select my eye control and move it, you can see that my eyeballs are following along. Okay, so undo that. Head, the head itself. So if your head's still in 3 pieces, select all 3 of those pieces, and then shift select your head joint and hit G to repeat the last command. So if you then rotate your head joint, you'll see that my head goes with it. Now my teeth, I didn't do my teeth, so those also need to be put on the head joint. So select the teeth, select the head joint, hit G. Okay, eyebrows are easy. Each eyebrow's got a single joint, so select the geometry, shift select the joint, hit G, do the other side, joint, geometry, hit G, and just quickly test it by moving this thing. Yep, eyebrow moves, that eyebrow moves. Excellent. Okay, now I didn't rig the antenna, but if you did rig the antenna, then you can skin it to the joints that you made in there. If you didn't rig the antenna, just put it on the skull joint. Okay, so select all parts of the antenna, and this is for both robots, whether it be the trash can or the TV robot. You can skin both of their antenna to the skull joint. So again, select all that and hit G, and now when you rotate the head, that antenna should move. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Pelvis. Pelvis goes to the pelvis joint. Hit G. So now if I do my hip control, see that my pelvis will go with it. Okay. So pretty straightforward. So if we now grab the cog and move them around, you see that everything is skinned except for my spine and my neck. Okay, so these are the pieces that would then be skinned to multiple joints. So little extra bit of complexity here, but nothing crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and go up here. I'm going to spine 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to shift select my spine geometry, and I'm going to go to skin, bind skin. Okay, I selected multiple joints, and if I then rotate my spine control, you'll see that my spine has got a nice even bend to it as I rotate it, no matter which way I go. So that's perfect. Let's do the same up here in the neck. We're going to select neck 1, neck 2, and head. And again, if you want to do it in the outliner, just so you're sure, neck 1, control click, and control click the head. So those 3 joints, shift select this geometry and do a skin, bind skin. And if we select the 2 neck controls and bend them, you'll see that we get our bending in our neck. And the neck doesn't bend quite as smooth as the pelvis, just because there's fewer joints in it, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so if we grab our master control and just move it, you'll see that there's no geometry left, so everything is good. And you'll see that if we scale up our rig, now the geometry scales with it. Okay, if we rotate everything rotates with it. So looks like we're in business. Okay, so just make sure that everything is working well, and we should be good to go. The last thing that we can do, just to clean everything up, everything looks good, but my joints are still visible. As an animator does not need to see your joints for any reason. Okay, so we need to make sure that we get rid of the joints, and by get rid I just mean hide the joints so the animator is not looking at them. And all you have to do for that is select your joints group under your master control and hit Control H to hide it. Now my joints are invisible. Okay, and then next thing we're going to do for the trash can robot, I'm going to show you how to paint weights on the foot in order to be able to get a nice bending in the foot. Okay, so make sure you save your work, and then we'll do the trash can robot. Okay, so we're going to do the skinning of the trash can robot. Now, I did not do the complete foot rig on the trash can robot, so I'm going to demonstrate without my rig, but it doesn't matter. You should still be able to do the same things, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to select the foot geometry. I'm going to shift select the ankle joint and shift select the ball joint. Again, you want to make sure that you have the ankle and ball selected, and then the foot geometry, and then we go to skin, bind skin. So if I rotate the toes down, and again for you'll be using your toe tap on the foot control. I'm just going to rotate the joint, but you'll see what happens is that we get this weird, you see how the heel is moving when I rotate, and things get flattened and it's not looking very good. So we need to do what we call painting weights. So I'm just going to have the foot pointed down like this, and again just use your toe tap group for that. And I'm going to select the foot geometry, go to skin, I'm going to go to paint skin weights, go in the option box. Okay, so the paint weights tool here allows us to specifically define how much influence each joint has on each vertex of the geometry. Okay, Maya will try to automatically sort of figure it out, and as you can see, we don't get the best results. So if you click, these are the two joints that are affecting this geometry. So if you do ball, you can see where it's the whitest, the ball has the most influence, and then it sort of falls off to black. Now you can see that the ball has influence all the way up to the heel. That's why when we rotated the ball, we had movement in the heel. So we need to just remove that from that. There's two ways we can do it. We can simply, we have a brush here, as you can see. We can simply set the value of that to 0 and then paint here. See, as I do that, it sort of falls away. The other way to do it is do it from the ankle, where we can set the value to 1, which is 100%, and then paint 100% of the weight on there. Okay, so we're just telling it where the influence is. So I'm going to keep doing that, and to decrease the size of your brush, you hold down B and middle and left mouse drag to the left, and it'll decrease the size of your brush. So I'm just going to paint 100% ankle here to just sort of affect the shape. We want all this stuff back here to be 100% on the ankle, so that we don't get any movement in the back of the foot when you rotate the front of the foot. Okay, and you sort of just go back and forth. So with the ball, I'm going to then max out this here to 100%, so that the toes of the foot go completely with the rotation of the ball. Okay, and then eventually we're going to get to a point where we sort of have to adjust the transition between where the ball has influence and where the ankle has influence. Okay, so at that point, say I might go to 0.5, oh, not opacity. Let's undo that. Value, if we set a value of 0.5, so we're painting half influence right about, again, if I hold down B and drag left mouse drag to the left, I can shrink my brush. So if we say we want 50% influence here, maybe a little bit more. Right now I'm set to replace. If I go to add and set this to 0.1, it's going to add a 0.1 of influence for every time I paint. So if I do this, you can see I can sort of slowly increase the amount of influence. Okay, so this is how you sort of tweak it to get a decent bend in the foot. Okay, this is generally how we would do characters, right? Most characters have geometry that has to be put on multiple joints. You can't just put it on a single joint like you can with these robots. So generally this is how we do it, but we're gonna just do this for the foot. And you just do that. And let's go back to the ball here. Let's bring this back to the ball. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can see now we have a much nicer, if I rotate my joint again, you see we have a much nicer foot action there. And when it's smoothed, it's going to give us some really nice deformation on that foot. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Okay, that's pretty much all you have to do to get a pretty decent weight painting on that foot. Okay, so unsmooth, and then to transfer that work over to the other side. Now, actually, you know what? It'd probably be faster if you just redo this on this side than to try to transfer it over. But if you could, if you wanted to, we'll just make you just do it again. That way you get a little bit more practice. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You just make sure that you have a nice deformation in that foot, so that it's not moving any part of the back there. So, oh, you see I have a little bit. If I do it here, you see I still have a little bit here. So again, I'm going to bend it down, then I'm going to select this geometry, and I'm going to go to skin, paint skin weights, and again I'm going to set my ankle. I'm going to set my value to 100%. I'm going to set it to replace, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint all this down until it all drops down. And if you want a really hard brush, you can select this brush right here, and you could just paint and paint and paint until everything. And if it helps, you can isolate the foot and then go back in the tool and make sure that all the stuff back here is at 100% on the ankle. So even right here, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So I'm going to make this big and just go over the entire area right here, so that we're not getting any movement from rotating the ball joint on this part of the foot. Just paint over it until nothing moves anymore. Okay, so let's see what that did for us here. And yeah, there we go. See how I'm rotating that and nothing's going on back here. So that's what we want. And then when you're done, just reset your rig to its default position, and there we go. So then to skin the faceplate for the trash can robot, very simply just select the 3 parts of the faceplate, select that jaw, and again we want to make sure that we bind skin there, and now this will move when you rotate the control. Okay, so that part's really easy. Just select the faceplate and skin it to the jaw joint, and that should be good to go.